bringing the focus back to small businesses, Bill English, is there too much rhetoric? Is it taking too long? We hear of small businesses that are waiting on their debtors to pay them. 30 days have become 42 days. It's getting worse and worse. They can't see any action plan whatsoever to help them. What would National do to make life easier at this time for small businesses?
Well, we can make it a bit easier, particularly by getting a bit more cash circulating. I mean, what businesses need is customers coming in the door with the ability to spend, and contracts coming down the pipeline for work and skills and technical capacities that they have. And that is why the tax cuts are so important. There's been a round of tax cuts in 1 October that is putting some cash into people's pockets. National's proposing another round in 1 April next year, rather than waiting a lot longer under the government's plan. And that'll put several $1 billion into people's hands, where they can either save it or pay off their debt, or go and spend it because they're catching up on their cost of living. And that's get a bit of cash going. It's the same with bringing the infrastructure spending forward. We, a couple of months ago, said we'd borrow a bit more money to bring infrastructure forward. That will be a big help, particularly for people who are being lost out of the construction industry because construction and property have pretty much hit a brick wall. And again, that's work, that's cash in the economy. Now the government can go so far providing some stimulus, and that helps every business in some way. It doesn't guarantee they're going to survive, and you can't get too carried away with that, because the cost of more stimulus is higher debt. And of course, we don't want to create a long-term problem by getting out of balance over dealing with the short-term problem. And then alongside that stimulus, we've got the less than glamorous but important job of continuing actually some work that's been done with reducing the compliance cost of the tax system. There's any number of other areas of legislation and regulation, like the Resource Management Act, the Building Act, where we can improve the process so business has more confidence that it's going to get reward for success, and it's going to be able to make decisions in a timely way.
Looking at those high costs and turning now to the emissions trading scheme, Trevor Mallard, that's reportedly going to cost this country anywhere between millions and billions of dollars. How is that scheme being funded?
Well, at the moment, under the agreement that was entered into by the National Party under the Kyoto Agreement, it's entirely taxpayer funded. What the emissions trading scheme does is transfer some of that cost from the taxpayer to the people who are responsible for the pollution, the companies that are doing that. It's transferring over a very slow time period, starting from now, but mainly starting in 2012, 2013, and running through to 2030. And the essence of it is to put with the people who are responsible for greenhouse gases the costs which governments have entered into, the international costs. So there is going to be a small cost of living increase as a result of that.
Do we know what that cost is, Trevor Mallard?
We won't know until we know the international prices for carbon, and that's something which is will take some time. But what we do know is that there are a lot of opportunities. For example, our houses are very, very badly insulated. The heating sources are not good, they're very inefficient, and so we do have opportunities to improve the health of families by having warmer houses.
We're almost out of time. I'm sorry, Trevor Mallard. Peter Dunn, your view, please, on the emission trading scheme.
Well, I think the difficulty we have with the emissions trading scheme that's been put in place is because we don't know the international price of carbon, there will be a significant impact on household budgets in New Zealand. The $112 a year compensation, or one-off payment of compensation in 2010 will not be enough. And at the point when it really starts to bite on households, what they will do will be demand of the government of the day changes to better recognise their situation, at which point we're right back to where we started. We think this thing hasn't been well thought through. We think a little bit more time could have worked out a solution that was more household friendly and was more likely to be politically durable in the future than what we've got at the moment.
Bill English, National's view on the emission trading scheme.
Well, we think we should have one, but we need to change this one to get a better balance between the environmental outcomes and the economy. And I think in people's minds, the economy side of that equation has become quite a bit more important than it was. We also want to look at and see what effect a recession is going to have on carbon emissions. because it looks likely, just by driving along the motorway in Auckland here at peak times, that there is quite a bit less carbon going to be emitted over the next few years, and we should take that into account in calibrating the ETS.
The New Zealand Institute recently said there's a need for politicians and business leaders to get together and hold a summit to try and brainstorm solutions for the current economic crisis. Trevor Mallard, would Labor favour a bipartisan approach to helping solve the global economic crisis which New Zealand is currently facing?
We're always interested in ideas from other parties, and I think there have been lots of discussions. Select committee systems have been used.
You would favour a bipartisan approach, Mr. Mallard?
Favour of a bipartisan approach within limits, and I think we've seen, for example, around the banking system discussions that we've been having, something of a bipartisan approach, with Mr. English being much more involved than you might have seen at times in the past. But that doesn't mean that we're going to give a veto to the National Party on that. Up against the clock again,
if I could just ask you very quickly, please, Bill English National, a bipartisan approach to solving the economy's problems?
Well, we've done it on one thing, and that's the banking guarantee, but otherwise the election is actually about changing economic management. I mean, we can't have everybody with a finger in the pie here. There has to be clarity, direction and political leadership, and that's what the election's about.
Peter Dunn.
Well, at the end of the day, the government of the day will govern, but I do think there is an appropriate place for bipartisan involvement on major issues. I also think there's a much greater place for bringing the business community and the unions in on these major economic decisions. We're all in this together, and I think this is about taking New Zealand forward. It's not about taking the government forward or the business community forward or the trade union movement forward. It's about taking all of us forward. And I think this does require some degree of greater cooperation. And I'd like to see us re-look at the old idea of the Prime Minister's Enterprise Council to give that overall leadership and direction, not just now, but on into the future as well.
We're out of time, I'm sorry. We'd like to begin this summing up with you, Trevor Mallard. First, please, 1 minute on Labor's priorities and how you see the economy at this point in time.
We're now at a point where we've got to make a decision about who New Zealanders trust to keep jobs for Kiwis. And we've got a real choice. We've got a choice of a party that's overseen the increase of 360,000 jobs. We've seen unemployment benefits plummet as a result of quality work in government. And we've got a contrast with a party whose policies have essentially been anti-family, anti-Kiwi saver, anti-working for families, against increasing the minimum wage, against 20 hours free. So we've either got to go with a party who last time in government responded to an economic crisis by cutting the pension, or go for a party that's going to focus on the retention of jobs in New Zealand and the retraining of people for new jobs. In my view, Helen and Michael are a great team, and we've got to stay with trusted leadership in a time of crisis.
We face an unprecedented international economic crisis, and the consequences will be very deep for New Zealand families at every level. What we need now is leadership that focuses on the key aspects of getting New Zealand's economy right for the future, that deals with the increasing problem that high taxes are causing by an ongoing program of tax reform, that starts to reduce our massive infrastructure deficit by improving our roads and other infrastructure, that recognises the big debts that our young graduates are incurring by moving to make student loans a thing of the past by having free fees. And all of these things are about securing our future within today's parameters, giving a sense of opportunity to New Zealanders that this country is for them, their future is here, and that we in government can work constructively to achieve a positive outcome.
Well, National's outlined a plan for the economy to cushion people against the worst bumps of a recession and to lift our long-term growth rates by improving the incentives in the economy to work and to save and to invest. We plan to get a hold of the government part of the economy so we have effective public spending and effective services for people. It is time for a change. The Labor government have done pretty much what they came to do. The election is about trust. It's about us, a government that trusts you to make decisions with your own money, trust you to make decisions about how to bring up your own family. New Zealanders aren't people who sit round and wait for the government to take them through hard times. The government can support, if it's a national government, will support you, but we need to build on the resilience and the aspiration and the ambition of Kiwis. That's how we'll get a brighter future.